So, welcome everyone. Happy Sunday night. Welcome to Sunday Night Planning. And congratulations on doing the first part. The most important thing we can actually do for any of this when we're trying to get a hold of your week is just having time to plan. So, by taking this time to sit down, that I bet you already feel like you got some good stuff done just in those first 15 minutes of just looking ahead a little bit, just taking a little bit of time to look ahead at the week and see what you have coming up. So we're going to dig into a little bit more. And what I'm going to take you through is a process that I put together for my team that we've been using for the past 4 years. And with it, it's just a simple way to break things down. And we used it in terms of trying to work for 6 weeks and take off for two. And so it became this guide and kind of how we were able to actually achieve this. Let me make it sure. All right, good. So it was about how we could actually go through and achieve this. So how can we work for 6 weeks and take off for two? And we started realizing is it didn't really matter if we were in the office from 9 to 5. Just being there didn't help make money. But when we were able to get things done, that's when things really started to change. And so I put together a book about all this called 6 Week Cycles. And what we're going to go through is some of the 6 week cycle system. And so today, what I want you to leave with is just this idea of knowing a little more about your week than you did before you sat down, which we might have already achieved. We might have already done that. So we're gonna get into a little more. And this is going to be your new best friend, Parkinson's Law. This is what we're going to use to get done as much as we need to get done in a week, because this simple concept is just the idea that a task is going to take the amount of time we give it. It's just that simple. That when we don't put a time cap on something, we're just going to keep going with it. That a 1 hour task becomes a 3 hour task because you let it become a 3 hour task. But when we can look ahead and say, this is how much time we're going to spend on something, it puts us in a better spot. And Parkinson's Law is what all of us did back in school. Is you remember having 6 weeks to put together a project that was due at the end of the semester. Yet somehow you wonderful magical creature, managed to finish it in just 4 hours the night before it was due. You're impressive. And that hasn't gone away. We can do that again when we know what you need to get done during the work week. So tonight, what we're going to look at, we're going to go through that Google Sheet together. If you joined us a little late, take down a quick note. You're going to go to hijoemartin.com. You're going to scroll down to 2020 resources, and you're going to grab the weekly planning guide. Make yourself a copy of that. We're going to jump into that sheet and go through it together a little bit later. And you're going to actually go through and work and start filling in your own sheet this week. So we'll get you there. In Zoom, you do have the ability to ask questions. We're going to save that for the end as you're working through things. And then finally, in just 42 minutes, you're going to feel prepared tomorrow morning. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning and just be, ooh, all right, I know what needs to happen. So on this sheet, when we get to it, we're not there yet, but the biggest thing that I talked about is scheduling time for planning an email. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to look ahead at some of the stuff you already have planned this week. There's already some meetings that you know you have coming up. There may be meetings that you know someone's going to ask for. Let's just ask them in advance. Let's email them tomorrow morning and schedule that meeting before they can. But we're going to put time inside of our schedule for this, which is one of the things the calendar doesn't let us do. And this is why we're going to plan inside of that spreadsheet. You've already started this one about brain dumping everything you need to get done this week. But you've already started writing down all those things. So congratulations. And then we're going to talk about placing those tasks in your sheet before we close out tonight. But let's start with number one here about scheduling time for planning an email. And planning that we just talked about, being here, setting aside the time for planning is already number one. And so this week, if you ignore everything else we're about to talk about, if you throw the sheet completely out the window, just this one thing I ask, just one, will you start every day with planning for 30 minutes? Don't jump into email this week. Just push off that urge to jump straight into email. And I just want you to start the first 30 minutes of your day, set a timer, put a timer on your phone and do it that way. And just start those first 30 minutes mapping out everything you need to get done that day. So this is where I want you to just plan some time when we get to the sheet for planning. And we're going to talk about what planning, communication, and doing mean. But let's just set aside a half hour per day to just plan and just try it this week. Trust me there. But we know that this is beneficial. We know that when we plan things in advance, things are going to go smoother. And that's what I want. But something else happens during this because you go through this idea of playing out your day, and all of a sudden it starts to go the way that you planned it. And I first heard about this idea of visualization with Michael Phelps. And they talked about how before a race, he closes his eyes and he pictures himself going through the entire race. And he goes out there and he does it. I think we can do the same. I think that if we take a little bit of time to sit down, just picture our day, we can call it meditation, whatever it needs to be. In this case, I just want you to talk about the things you need to get done that day and write them down. But just doing that, I think you're going to have so much more clarity into your day. And part of what I also helps this accomplish for you is limiting some distractions. Distractions are so ridiculously unproductive. And I think what I don't like most about a distraction is that it steals time, because it means that I could have gotten this thing done in an hour, but because of these distractions, it's now going to take a half hour more. And that just these little time increments, I don't want to give up time. My fight each day is against time and not necessarily what I need to get done. That if I can get these things done before 5 o'clock, I've won time. And any disruptions, any message from, if you use Slack, if your team uses Slack or Skype or any kind of instant messaging program, just careful. Just turn this thing off if you can. Make sure you have time in the day where you do get away from this. Because we just saw a stat that talked about how 25 minutes is what it takes to get us back to where we were. Even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 10, whatever it is that we need to get back to where we were. Otherwise, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot here. So daily planning, and then email and Basecamp. And what I usually hear when we talk about starting to plan out someone's week is that they just don't think they can do this. That there's no way I could possibly plan out my week because too many things come up. We can plan for things to come up. So on that sheet, all we're going to do, we're just going to put an extra 2 hours for shit that comes up, because it's going to happen, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't plan the whole day. It means we can still plan around this. And if that stuff continues to creep into 3 hours or 4 hours, fine. That still means we have at least 2 hours a day that we can plan to get done what we need to get done around all the things that come up. But getting these things under control, that one's a little bigger. We'll save that conversation. So we've got time for daily planning and then some time for email. We know this old thing about email, that if we look at email as a task, as something we need to get done and not something that just stays open, we have a better chance of getting it done. That I remember I went to a business skill training webinar, and the facilitator asked this question of, how much time do you spend per week on email? And I was like, this is ridiculous. There's no way to know how much time per week I spend on email. That it's on my computer, so it's popping up at me all day. If it's not there, it's on my phone. And I'll never get it under control because I'm just always plugged into email. But you can push it into containers. You can push it into blocks. That if you want to give it a shot this week, try doing email at just 10 and 2 or 10 and 3. See if the world falls apart if you were to just push it into those blocks and close your email program when you're not in it. If you can. I understand some people can't, but find out what those reasons are that you can't close it, and maybe just ask those people to call you. So see what you can do. Start treating email like a task. Give it time and work on it during those times, and close it when you're not working on it. As we're breaking down the time, we're going to look to plan for just 6 hours per day. I understand that the work week is supposed to be 8 hours. We're 8 hours per day. We're getting there, but just look at how we want to plan for 6. So if we do this, we get that first half hour of planning per day. Then that leaves us 5.5 hours for email, meetings, and projects, which when we're not productive, we're probably doing even less than this. So let's get it in line, be hyper productive. And when we do it this way, this leaves us 4 breaks at 15 minutes per break, which we should be taking. We know that ergonomically we need this, and we need a little more time for lunch. Let's take that hour for lunch. We're working at home. I want you to get up. I want you to get away from the computer. I want you to come back to the computer refreshed, let your eyes. Let's take some of those breaks, take lunch, and altogether this gives us that 8-hour workday. And one of the questions I get a lot when people hear about the book and about working for 6 and taking off for 2 is they ask, do you work all 7 days over those 6 weeks? And no, I don't want to work that much. This isn't about overloading and pushing ourselves. This is more about this tortoise and hare style pace that a lot of people just run, and then burn themselves out. I just want to go slow and steady. I want you to be able to step into a day, know what you need to get done, how much time you have allotted to get it done, and then get out of that workday. And I often compare this to the Metro. So if you're not from Chicago, we got 2 big trains in Chicago. There's the L, which is our elevated train that goes around the loop and kind of out to the surrounding neighborhoods. And that one just runs at any time. You show up, you're going to wait 10 or 15 minutes, and then you'll get on. But the other train we have that goes out to the suburbs is the Metro. And the Metro is all about being on time. That they're going to be at your stop on time. They're going to get you into the city on time. And that's what they focus on. And I kind of want you to focus on that same thing. Start trying to be on time with everything. And we don't always need to push 100%. That the Metro isn't on time because it's running at 100% between its first stop and its second stop. It gets there on time because it's going at 60%, knowing that if it needs to, it can go up to 80%. It can go up to 90. That we can't give 100% of ourselves every day. That is way too much to ask. That's not how anything works, going full throttle all the time. So let's stop treating it that way, and let's get to an even 60% where you are hyper productive and you're getting done the things you need to get done that week to move your projects forward, move the business forward, and let's run at 60, 70%, just knowing that, again, if you need to, that if Peter needs to crank it up a little bit, he can go to 80% that week. He can go to 90. He can go to 120 if he needs to. But that we've got room to do that. So let's not overplan ourselves. Let's plan the goals we're actually going to achieve as we go through. So we have email and Basecamp. And then after we've listed, I mean, these are the basics. I'm gonna make you do this. This is what we're gonna do. So next we have this weekly check-in. And I already talked about this idea. We'll get back to that 1.5 hour max. But at the beginning and end of every week, I want a little bit of accountability out of you. So on Monday, I want you to take this time to do a check-in, which would be either by yourself or with your team, and may just be part of the planning. If you get the chance to do it with a team or anyone else you work with, to go through and say, this is what I'm working on this week. And this is part of the narrative we need to change with some of this, because so many times people are reporting and saying, this is what I got done this week. I want you to start saying, this is what I'm going to get done this week. That stop looking at the past. I want us to look at the future and know where we're going to be and how we're going to get those things done. And so with this check-in and check-out meeting, it helps hold us a little more accountable to things. So on Monday, these meetings are geared more for a team environment. So if you do have someone else you can do this with, great. If not, let me know, and maybe we get a little group together, and we'll see if we can get some people to meet up Monday and talk about what they have going on that week. So the beginning, you go through, tell everyone else what you're working on, and then we're also going to look to coordinate any scheduled meetings or reviews that we want to work up to getting to understand what's happening in our week. And on Monday, I'd love for you to know what's going to happen by Friday. I understand that right now, there's probably no way of knowing how the week plays out, but we're going to do this a little bit every time. We're going to do it a little more every week, and you're going to start to get there. All of a sudden, you're going to start to get control of the week and know more what's coming. Because this step, let's just do a little risk analysis. Let's look ahead. Let's talk about what might derail us and try to prevent that from derailing us. Which is where we're going to go through and ask, what problems could occur? What pain in the ass client do you know is going to call you a day before his job is due? Email him the day before. Let's cut it off. but we need to start understanding what those things are. And this last step on the Monday is to review the improvements from the previous week. And what I mean by that is that on Friday, you have a checkout meeting. And this is one of those things that, especially if you have a team, please give this meeting a shot. That it was so incredibly impactful for my team. And all we did was everyone would show up. It'd be a 2 o'clock meeting on Friday. There's nothing they need to prepare. It's not a status update. They just need to show up. I set a timer on my phone, and we just spend 2 minutes in silence writing down what went well that week. And I really wanted my team to be able to share just not work stuff, but are there personal things affecting you? Is there something in your life that's happening that may be impeding your performance? And so to do that, I started sharing what was happening to me personally. And I tried to lead by example to say, look, here's my work stuff that some of it didn't go well. Like, look, I'm failing with you as well in trying to do my best. Let's all do this together. And I would share those things in personal as well as work life. Because we would go around and then talk about what went well that week, which this also gave my team a chance to celebrate their wins. That there may be things that I didn't notice were as important to them as they really felt that it was. And I just don't think managers have the time to do that. And so with this meeting, we now give that employee a chance to stand up and to say, this went well. I'm proud of this thing that I did this week. And we can give them some recognition. And that goes so far just in terms of being a human and even just helping someone feel more motivated in their role. So give them a chance, let them celebrate their wins when they talk about what went well that week. After that, take out the phone, set another timer for 2 minutes. Only this time, write down what didn't go well that week. And again, whether it's work or personal life, which I know we got to be careful, but these are your employees, this is your team. Let's find out what's happening in their lives. And then we share that as we go through and then talk about things that didn't go well. And then we want to talk about how do we improve those things for next week. So if you tell me something, a project that you had was absolutely awful and you hated working on it, great. What can we do next week? Is there a way we can break it down? Is there a piece of it that I can take off of you to make it easier for you? What can I do to help you? And we get this information by just having someone talk about what didn't go well. That even if something on a project was interfering or off track, you'd learn about it because they would tell you in this area that what didn't go well. And for my team, it just became this simple meeting to hang out, that we would show up on Friday. And for one of our team members who worked in Cape Town, South Africa, that we'd never met, is he started looking forward to it. And when we wouldn't do these meetings on our 2-week break, we'd miss them. Like, we'd miss hanging out with each other. And it gave us this chance to connect digitally, to almost have that water cooler talk, hang out. Here's the things that are important. So if you can get this right, that what we see is, first, we get cognitive closure. Just that chance to feel like you completed what you needed to get done. You can shut off your brain as a manager, as a business owner, even just as an employee, whatever role we are. There are 1,000 things we could be working on. And while we don't always admit it, we feel it. We feel it pushing in on us of just, oh, there's so much to get done. And then even on Friday, we're exhausted and saying, oh, I don't even know what I got done. And man, there's so much to get done next week. And we just keep saying, there's so much to get done. There's so much to get done. There's so much to get done. What is it that you need to get done? I want it written down. I want it mapped out. I want to know what those things are that you need to get done, and to get this cognitive closure, to let your brain feel just better that you got it done. So that's number one. Number two with this is that what I found out was, all of a sudden things became a little clearer in terms of what we're supposed to be working on. It was almost like a post dress rehearsal before you go out for the live show. That it seemed like everyone knows where they need to be, what time they need to be there, and they can just show up and perform. And so even if you're just mapping this stuff out for yourself and you're not doing it for a team, all of a sudden you know where you need to be and when. My favorite comparison, just because I love time travel, is that it's almost like the past version of you is the boss of the future version of yourself. And that you're telling yourself where you need to be and at what time, and you're doing it by the calendar. And once you put it on there, we've got to respect the calendar because we get better expectations. We get that cognitive closure. Now all of a sudden I started finding out my team was less stressed, that they felt better about showing up and getting done what they needed to get done because of those clear expectations. And once they were less stressed, holy shit, it was magical that all of a sudden I became less stressed. I didn't realize how much of their emotions I carried on me, but I did. And so as this got in line, all of a sudden mine went away. And then I gave them the chance. This was when I first talked about the 2 weeks off. What I really wanted were just for parents to have a little bit more time with their kids, to go steal your kid out of school for the day and take them to the zoo. Like go make that memory. But work never gives you permission to do that. It never says, hey, it's okay to take off today and do nothing. And that we're almost trained that we have to take off with a purpose. And that's where I wanted these 2 weeks. Get your stuff done, get the things done over the time that you need to. And then I'll give you a little bit of time off. Like go reset yourself, take care of your house, take care of your family, and come back in ready to work. That when I looked at the user journey of a parent and what a parent goes through, is that on Monday morning they have to wake up, get the kids ready, usually get them off to school when we're not in the middle of a pandemic. They go to work 9 to 5. They come back home, pick up the kid, make dinner, try to clean up, try to take care of themselves, play with the kid, entertain, work on their homework with them, get them to bed, then try to have time for themselves, which I don't think really ever happens because you have to be exhausted at that point. Put yourself through this 5 days a week that then you go through every day working like this of taking care of things, never having time to yourself. And then all weekend, you got even more to do. You've got family parties, you got stuff to do around the house, you have to go grocery shopping, meal prepping, taking care of the kids now full time on the weekends. That then I expect you to come back in Monday morning refreshed and ready to go. Are you shitting me? This is how we treat people? We need time. We need that break in between. And so having some of these expectations for yourself, even if you just get to Friday, if you get to this Friday and feel, I got done what I needed to get done, I think this weekend will already start to feel a little better for you. So let's go ahead and go through it. I want you to go ahead and pull out that sheet that we have that you grabbed at the beginning. Again, if you don't have that sheet, go to hijoemartin.com, scroll down the homepage of the resources, grab that weekly planning guide, open it up, make a copy, and let's jump into it. So the first thing is scheduling time for planning an email. I think I may have already done this in the sheet for you. So in case you deleted my half hour every day planning for you, put that back in. And in case you deleted the 1 hour for email, we'll go ahead and talk about what that looks like. So this next part of looking ahead at the meetings, we're going to get into as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen on this side, and we're going to actually just go ahead and work on this together because I also need to plan my week. So why not just do this all at the same time? And here we go. So you've got a sheet looking something like this. I'm taking Monday off. That's my beautiful girlfriend's birthday. So we're gonna go have a wonderful time with a quarantine style date, perhaps some theater tomorrow evening. We'll find out what I can do. So I'm taking tomorrow off. So Monday, I've grayed out. Everything now needs to fit within 4 days. So through this daily planning every day, we have 3 categories to this sheet. We have that planning portion, we have communicating, and then we have this last area of doing. So planning is anything that we need to just sit down and work on to get some kind of plan in place. Really straightforward. You may find other things you need to put in there, but most of the time it's just going to be this daily planning task. Communicating is anything you're doing that involves communicating with another person. So I put email in here because we're usually responding back to someone through email. Any meetings you have coming up, what else? Any webinars you might be attending, any of that where it's about you and someone else is going to go into this communicating area. Doing is where we get to shut off the world. These are the things that you turn off all the distractions for. I don't need you turning off distractions all day, all the time. I know that's going to be a little rough, but if you can at least turn off distractions for the doing time, you may find this is how you can get more things done, because we'll know exactly what you need to do during those times. And this is where you can tell the kids, hey, I'm going to be available in an hour and a half. And and let's see what we can do. I know time doesn't work. There's some other studies on that, but we'll talk about that later. But just going through doing, again, shutting everything off. So first thing, we need to make sure that we actually understand what our communicating time looks like. I'm going to share my whole desktop here just so we can see both. So for here, we want to flip between the calendar and then our sheet. So this week, looks like I already have way too many meetings on Tuesday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I want to go through and put each one of these into my sheet right now so I understand how much time I'm actually going to be having to go through with each of those. So this is a catch up, Annie. And so just go ahead and move those over one at a time to get them onto that sheet. I don't want them specifically in your calendar because the biggest thing the calendar is missing is time. It gives us dates. Calendars do dates incredibly. And while it lists out the time, it doesn't help me understand the total time. And that's where I want you doing this per day as well. Because there may come a day where you just feel like crap in the morning and you can't get that first task done. And so with that, I want you to be able to look ahead. I want you to look at your sheet and say, well, I don't really need to do this today. Why don't I just move that to a little later in the week? And you kind of get rid of it and do it that way. And so when we use the sheet instead of the calendar, it just helps us break those things out. So I'm going to give you time. This is your chance. We've got, 18 minutes left. So you already wrote down some of those things you need to get done, that at this point, just use the sheet and start filling in your week. So we got the planning time, we've got the email time, transfer any meetings that you already have in your calendar, whether it's an upcoming provisors meeting, if it's a troika that you have, if it's a virtual coffee, whatever it is, let's list all of that in communicating. And then when we look down here at the bottom of the sheet and we try to plan for 6 hours a day, let's see how much time you actually have per day for doing. How much time is really left for you to be able to go in and get done the stuff that you need to get done. That if you're anything like me recently, I feel like my life has been overrun by video meetings, and that the only way to really differentiate the weekdays from the weekend is based on whether or not I've had video chats. And then I'm staying away from them on the weekend. So you can go ahead, start working on this, fill it out. I'm gonna be here for questions. You can raise your hand if you want to speak with me. I can pull you over. We can look at your stuff together, or just use the chat, and I'm happy to answer some questions there. But otherwise, everyone, welcome to Sunday Night Planning. And now you have a little more time here at the end to go through and get this week planned. So any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Really happy to see so many people still sticking around and working on their sheet. I'm glad it wasn't just this mass drop off of everyone leaving. So I feel like it means you're actually working through it. So to clarify one more thing that I just got from a private chat is under the doing area, all those things that you wrote down at the beginning in that first 15 minutes as you were jotting things down and putting times to them, that's what then you're going to go to reference to start putting in, whether it's a doing or communicating task. But everything you wrote down that you need to get done this week should start fitting into here. If it doesn't all fit and the days look like they're super overwhelmed, see what you can get rid of. See what you can do to get those hours down on it. So keep working through the sheet. Any questions, just let me know in the chat. A few more questions just to share. So one of them is whether or not you're going to get a copy of this recording. I will send a copy over later this week to be able to go through, pull it up, reference everything. I'm also going to send you an email tomorrow morning about taking that time to plan. So just be ready for that one. That again, I know we're making our plan for the week now, but then tomorrow, I want you to actually start to go through and put these things inside of your day. So that's where I want you to take it, then put it on your calendar, map out your day. If that's a little confusing, let's just do a quick share here real quick and make sure that we're all set on this concept. So let me go back. I'm gonna go back to last week here. And so you should have everything written down on the sheet by tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning, you're gonna come in and you're gonna see all these things, all these items. So then what I want you to do is go onto your calendar and make the space for every single task that you have coming up. So if I know that I've got, what do we got here? Munch out, estimate for Bulldog tours. So I want to go through, make some time on my calendar, and then literally write in estimate for Bulldog tours, and then be able to place that somewhere inside my day. And so just where do I need to put it? Where does it need to go? And you do that in the morning. So that'll be part of that morning planning. So we get it all listed on the sheet with the hours on the Google spreadsheet. And then every day we sit down and we start to move things from that Google spreadsheet into our calendar around what we have coming up. Because if I was looking at that day, it may mean I can't fit it in. And then I need to look at just going through and putting that. And it means I need to work later that day to get that stuff done. But at least I know where it fits in. And that's what we're looking for. So go through, keep working your sheets, keep the questions coming if there's anything else. What do we got here? I got one more from Vicky. An example of doing, please. So for that, last week I had to give a talk for my old high school, West Leiden, out in the suburbs. And so I needed to prepare that talk for that Leiden series. And so that, it doesn't involve anyone else. And I think that's probably the general guideline to go off of, is that if it doesn't involve anyone else, we had questions about massage clients. If it's another person, it's communicating. We're still communicating. If it's just you, let's make that your doing task. And again, those are the ones you can close off everyone else that you don't need to see or talk. We close the email for those doing tasks. So those are just you, a computer, whatever you need to get done. Let's keep that as our classification of doing. And then Vicky's asking, do you put them in the actual times later? Do you try to keep everything within 6 hours? So yes, let's try to keep everything within 6 hours. It doesn't always work, but at least we've got a plan in place and we can start to see where things go off the rails. I would love it if you went back and updated the sheet with actual times later. That'd be incredible. I do think that's a lot of work though. So for now, let's just focus on planning out the week ahead of us. Let's do our best to estimate those times. And if we find out it didn't work out, let's go put more time in the calendar to finish that task. And then the next time we have that task, let's look back and remember, that took me an hour and a half last time. I thought it would only be a half hour. And then start to make our estimates that way. Because a lot of the times we're not doing something brand new every time for work. It's something we've probably done before, and this is a different iteration of it, but we generally understand how it's going to go. So if it goes bad one week, let's go ahead and get it adjusted the next week. And we can keep doing that when we plan the weeks in advance because we can't do anything about the past, but we do get to write the future. And this helps you do that.